Hi, my name is Connie. Welcome to my channel. I am being instructed by God to share my story and my life story. I've been through quite a bit in my life, I think, more than anybody else that I know, and it's not to discount anybody's problems that they've gone through or any kind of life events anybody's gone through. But ever since I was a little baby, you could kind of say my life has been targeted for whatever reason. And I think it's because I hold some kind of special vibration or special light. So from the time that I was born, my life has been pretty chaotic. My very first memory was when I was a year and a half, and that's when my dad dropped me off at my aunt and uncle's and didn't come back for about 6 months. When he finally came back, we moved to the mountains in Toll House, California, and we stayed there together for about a year together, and then he asked my mom to come and live with us. And I didn't have any issue with it. I mean, my memories at that point are just kind of sporadic, but my dad thought that he was doing what was convenient for him. He didn't necessarily want to take care of me, and my mom didn't want to take care of me, so what better things than both of them not wanting to take care of me together? I grew up in a very loveless home. My home was not one that was filled with a bunch of compliments or praises. It was, in fact, a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting, and somehow through it all, I ended up being the one that came out expressing the most love. When I was probably 7 or 8, my dad left and moved to San Francisco and was gone for a couple years. My sisters told me it was because of me, and I knew that it wasn't, but that's what they told me. When he finally came back, he kicked my mom out of the house and brought in his girlfriend. The two of them eloped, went to Hawaii when I was about 10, and then when I was 11, the three of us moved down to LA. My dad, myself, and my stepmom. My mom stayed in Fresno, or stayed in Toll House, and I would go visit her every once in a while. It was between the summer of my 8th and 9th grade year. I went to go visit my mom, and I decided that I wanted to stay with her. So I called my dad, and I told him that I wanted to stay with my mom. And of course he was upset, but he said fine. Prior to school starting, which would have been in California, it starts after Labor Day, so September. Towards the latter part of August, my mom let her boyfriend put me on a plane down to LA. I could not get a hold of my dad to come and pick me up at the airport, and I ended up flying into LAX at midnight with nobody there to pick me up at 14 years old. When I got a hold of my girlfriend at the time, her parents came and got me and drove me back, and I stayed the night at her house. The next morning we went to my house, and there was a for sale sign in the front yard. My dad had moved and did not tell me where he had moved to. I called the realtor because I knew him, and he told me that my stepmom was still in LA, so I got in touch with her, and she put me on a plane back to Fresno because my dad had moved to Madera. My dad and I never saw eye to eye on a lot of things, and when I was almost done with my freshman year of high school, I left and I went back to my mom's. I don't know why, but I did. And sure enough, the same thing happened. Only this time, my dad wasn't in LA or my stepmom in LA. I had to call my grandparents to come and pick me up from the airport. They did, and I stayed with them for a couple of days. And then when I was 15, my dad sent me to live with my aunt and uncle again in Oklahoma. I lived with them for 6 months. I left. I went to stay with my brother for a few months. And by that time I had turned 16. And At 16, my dad asked me to come back to California. He had moved back down to LA. He and my stepmom had separated. And I said, okay. So I went. I didn't realize that my dad was just looking for a housemaid. And that's all I ever was somebody who could cook, clean, and really somebody just to push around. I finally left home at 17 and I never went back. But mine and my dad's relationship, although it became better when we were older, I don't think it ever was the same. I don't think I ever really had a relationship with my parents. I don't blame my parents. I love my mom and I love my dad. They did the best that they could. They had their own issues when they were growing up that resulted in who they were and how they treated my sisters and I. And as a mom myself, I would hate for my kids to look at my past and make judgment calls about who I am. It's not, it wasn't something that I could do to my parents if I didn't want them to do it to me. And although I may have grown up and I had anger towards my parents when I was younger, as I became an adult, that anger went away. I no longer was angry with my parents. I realized that they did the best that they could. They may not have loved me, but they had their reasons. Truthfully, I think it was so that I could evolve more and be more lenient on God. He's always been there for me. I mean, how in the world could a girl who's 14 years old fly into LA and not get stuck in all the crap in LA? I didn't. God saved me so many times in my life. He has rescued me more times than I could count. My advice to anybody who has issues with their parents, regardless of what your parents did. Now, there's some things that you would think are unforgivable, but what I would say is, could God forgive you for how you feel about them? God doesn't like bitterness. He doesn't like anger. He doesn't like hate. We've got to find a way to turn around those feelings. Find compassion for them. That's what I did. I realized that we are all victims of our environment, but we can choose not to be. We're set up that way, but we don't have to let it affect who we are. I hope this helped, and there'll be another video coming. Thank you.